Welcome to Business Chronicles by Rogers Capital Tax. I'm Roby Tharanee.
I am Pallavi Agnihotri. We have the pleasure of welcoming Antish Bissessur, Chief Strategy Officer of Rogers Capital Fiduciary.
We also have amongst us Alvin Jeeawock, Chief Operating Officer of Swan Capital.
Let's kickstart our show with a discussion on a recent ARC judgment with Ryan Alas.
Welcome, Ryan.
Welcome, Ryan.
Pleasure as always.
We understand that you have a very interesting case for our viewers, Kaywood Company Limited and the MRA. Can you tell our viewers a bit more about the facts of the case?
Of course. Kaywood Limited, in fact, is a registered company for VAT purposes and is involved in manufacturing of wooden furniture. The MRA issued an assessment claiming VAT of approximately 1 million rupees from the company, arguing that installation of customized wooden structures such as kitchen sets and bathroom vanities should be considered as taxable instead of exempt.
So, Ryan, what was the stand of the MRA?
In fact, the stand of the MRA was that the work carried out by Kaywood Limited should be considered as part of the furnishing of the building, rather than construction of the building.
And what was the stand of the company?
The stand of the company was that the work carried out should be considered as part of the construction of the building, rather than furnishing of the building. They contended that their works were integral to the overall construction.
So, what was the reasoning of the committee?
The committee considered that the exemption under item 65 of the VAT Act in respect of construction of the building applies to Kaywood Limited and set aside the assessment issued by the MRA.
So what was the reasoning of the ARC?
The reasoning of the ARC, in fact, was that the works carried out by Kaywood Limited, which involved the installation of customized wooden structures such as kitchen sets and bathroom vanities, should be considered as part of the construction of the building. They argued that these works were integral to the overall construction process and were not simply furnishings that could be easily moved or replaced like a table.
Thank you indeed, Ryan. It's a very interesting matter, especially for professionals in the construction industry.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
We shall now move to the next part of our show.
Welcome, Antish. Welcome, Alvin, on this platform.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Pleasure.
The most recent Africa Wealth Report by Henley and Partners described Mauritius as a millionaire magnet. Mauritius is expected to experience wealth growth of 75% over the next decade, making Mauritius the fourth fastest growing country in the world over the next 10 years in terms of wealth management. So, Antish, could you tell us what this means to our local financial industry?
First, I think before answering, it's good I give a bit of context. A large portion of the millionaires that have moved to Mauritius come from Europe and Africa. And if we focus on Africa, because Mauritius is positioned as the IFC for Africa, Africa has the fastest and youngest population. And with that, naturally, it has the greatest investment prospects and prospects for wealth creation. If we look at the past decade, wealth has been created in the continent. And if I borrow some of the findings of the report that you just mentioned, there was an increase in the number of millionaires, but with that, there was also a migration of millionaires. Some have moved outside of the continent to countries like the UK and the USA, and there's also been an inter-Africa movement of millionaires. And approximately 1,200 of those millionaires moved within the continent, and Mauritius and South Africa have been two of the most favored destinations. So in terms of Mauritius, the country has experienced 69% growth in terms of the number of millionaires over the past decade. And the latest figures show that the high net worth individuals in the country have $48 billion worth of investable assets. And that means in terms of wealth per capita, we are at around $38,000, which places us the highest in Africa. So in terms of outlook now, the African continent is expected to keep on delivering on its potential, and the number of millionaires is expected to grow by 42%. Mauritius is expected to capture a big chunk of that, as you mentioned earlier on, because of its favorable investment migration program and also as its position as the IFC of preference for the continent. Now, what this means for us, inevitably, more wealth in the country means a greater need for structures to harbor this wealth, be it in terms of global business companies, trusts, foundations, family offices, so more opportunities for fiduciary players like ourselves. In terms of banking, there should be more opportunities for banks to grow what they call their segment B business, so international business. If we look at statistics since 2017, there's been a 15% year-on-year growth in deposits from non-residents, again, which shows that there's been a migration of wealth towards the country. So there should be more opportunities even in private banking. For wealth and asset managers, I believe there will be an opportunity to increase the scale of their operations, and with that bring some sophistication, more sophistication to the services and the product offering. And I'll let Alvin maybe elaborate more on this later on. So in summary, inevitably, more wealth to the country should bring more opportunities for the financial services and the players involved in the industry, but also for the economy at large. Here I'm thinking of the hospitality, the real estate sectors, and others should benefit from this.
So, Alvin, the rising number of millionaires in Mauritius also mean a rise in the need of bespoke investment strategies that align with the wealthy family's financial aspirations and risk tolerance. So, how does Swan Capital Solutions provide such accompaniment?
Well, let me just give you a bit of background on Swan Capital Solutions first. So Swan Capital Solutions, what we are today, we're a uniquely positioned company centered around asset management, lending business, forex business, stockbroking business, and corporate advisory. So what we have constructed is a whole array of services which include products, which include human capital, and which include technology, investment, to accompany those clients. I mean, today at Swan Capital Solutions, we are managing close to 2 billion euros of money. We are transacting on the bourse locally and internationally. We're doing a lot of corporate lending locally and in Africa. We're doing a lot of corporate advisory and structuring a lot of businesses, a lot of families. Because when you speak about wealthy families, it's very often new families who are sort of at the verge of getting super rich. But to take them to the next step, there's a bit of journey that has to be constructed. So what we have, and why I'm giving you this context, is that for them to grow, you need a flexibility. Each case is unique. For instance, you can have a family which is well run, and you've got a successor which will take over the business. Probably has other plans, has, for instance, expansion plans. You can come in and provide the right kind of financing packages, for each to grow the business. And why I'm telling you business is because what we shouldn't forget is that those rich families, where does the wealth emanate? Mainly from their family businesses. So a lot of that is coming from that. So when you're thinking about the families, you also have to take care of the family businesses. So by accompanying the businesses, you are also able to accompany the families. Now, I'll give you an example, where, let's say, a successor wants to grow the business, can do a lot of things. You can do, we can structure financing for them. We can look for strategic partners for them. There are other types of scenarios as well. I'll give you one example. We have one of our clients who's, a high net worth, very rich, but doesn't have a potential successor. In the sense that the children wanted to do arts, and they're doing very well into arts. But what happens to the business? What happens to the sort of wealth aspect? Because the family has amassed a lot of wealth, but obviously with the background of arts, it's not necessarily, they don't have the financial acumen to go and do what the father used to do. So this is where you sort of come, for instance, we can work with Rogers Capital, with a trust, we can work in an insurance wrapper, and we can do sort of asset management thing that we are so used today to deliver for them for the next generation. So where you used to have a father figure, now you won't have a father figure, which means that you've got to go and sort of educating the successors. I mean, they won't be into the sort of decision making. They don't want to be basically. They don't want to have that burden on their head, but they want some degree of control because it's their money. So what we do in that case would be that we build their knowledge. We start to get them in the conversation, with the father figure and the children. We have a lot of sessions with them, just explaining to them, what are we doing, what are our objectives, so that the expectations in terms of the money that they have and what could be happening for them, is well taken care of. So I would say that the flexibility, the whole array of services, where you can just play around, this is what makes you an able facilitator for those rich families. So you need to be a lot of plugs, a lot of plates, a lot of plugs. Each case is unique. So it's a whole moving part, and you've got to be constructing a solution for each individual. I mean, there's no sort of format cases.
So it's all about targeting the wealthy. So what is your strategy that you put in place, Swan Capital Solutions, that target, if I may say, your wealthy audience?
Well, a lot of things. As I told you, it's a moving part. So, for instance, one of the biggest generators of wealth and biggest purposes of being able to preserve wealth in the long run is private equity. What high net worth are looking at is having businesses, having access to investment opportunities that others don't have access. Because the more unique it is, the more it is protected, the more you have higher return, and the more you have sort of kind of risk-reward relationship that is not asymmetric to the market. I give you one simple example. Unique businesses which are positioned in a very unique way to continue to benefit. So we look for those kind of opportunities we bring to them. Having said that, this was just an example. You've got to take into consideration the whole sort of array of portfolio. And you've got to be very agile in terms of decision making. This is where the cross is, because in investment, a lot of things are happening. And a lot of things which I would say, sometimes look theoretical, sometimes look like clear cut, but is not.
So, Alvin, we've been talking about high net worth individuals, and we know that the main aim of high net worth individuals is mainly to generate sustainable returns while preserving and growing their family wealth. So, how the Swan Capital solution is geared towards the preservation of that generational wealth?
Yeah, a very important point, just because, just to give you a bit of context, is that it has been proved that a rich family in 3 generations actually loses that wealth if it is not done in a sustainable manner. And again, each one is in a unique position. So you've got to be identifying that unique thing that will make them sustainable. It's all about opening their eyes for them to see what kind of opportunities there are, what kind of things can be done, and what things that shouldn't be done.
So the typical high net worth individuals, or rather ultra high net worth individuals, are very attracted and well served by the European and American jurisdictions, such as in terms of banking, wealth management and structuring, and or relocation. So what assets does Mauritius have to compete in this segment?
Okay. Look, if we consider our target markets, and 2 of those are, again, the African continent and the Indian region, it's true that a large portion of those HNIs are well serviced by and are attracted by the offer that the European and American service players can provide. But it's also true that a large portion of those HNIs are not serviced by those European and American players. So I think Mauritius, given our geographical and cultural proximity to those markets, we are well positioned to be able to attract these HNIs to consider Mauritius as a jurisdiction to diversify their wealth. Now, if I get to the assets, I group those in 3 categories. Okay, First one, in terms of the structuring solutions that we're able to provide. Okay, we have our trust, which are common law based and which are used in wealth planning and wealth structuring. We have the Mauritius Foundation, which is a hybrid between company and trust. Again, can be used for both commercial and charitable purposes. In some jurisdictions, it's only for charitable purposes. We have family offices, which can be single or multi, depending on the size and the wealth of the family. Recently, in the finance bill, what we was approved that we could use VCCs even as part, as for family office purposes.
Variable capital funds. Yeah.
Variable capital funds. So in terms of structuring solutions, I would say we are nearly or at par with what can be found in European or American jurisdictions. Second, I'll say the legislative and taxation framework. As you know, Mauritius has a hybrid law system based on English and Code Civil. The highest court of appeal is the Privy Council, so that gives a lot of comfort to foreigners who use the country, who invest in the country, or who decide to relocate in the country. In terms of taxation, we have a very competitive taxation regime, progressive for individuals. And in terms of for trusts and foundations, they are treated as companies for taxation purposes, so they have access to all the treaties, and it's very appealing in terms of wealth planning. As you know, there are no succession tax in Mauritius, no inheritance tax, no capital gains tax. So in terms of, I'd say, legislation and taxation, we have a very competitive offer. Third, the economic and social environment. Okay, touch wood, we have a stable economy, be it from a investment grade perspective, we've been able to maintain that investment grade from Moody's.
We have really bounced back, by the way.
We have really bounced back from COVID. We have a stable political environment. And there are the other things that you've heard quite often, but I'll say it again, you know, we are bilingual, well connected. In terms of safety, one of the safest countries, if not the safest country in Africa to live in. A very good access in terms of connectivity, a very good access to a real estate portfolio that foreigners can choose from if they decide to, you know, invest in Mauritius. So in terms of lifestyle, I'd say it's very appealing. So despite being small in size, I'd say Mauritius packs a good punch and has some very good assets to compete with those jurisdictions we mentioned a bit earlier on, and can definitely be considered by foreign HNIs to relocate or diversify their wealth portfolio.
Yeah, and I think that maybe what we need to add in terms of assets into Mauritius is that we've got to be figuring out that actually a lot of companies, being multinationals or asset managers, have been migrating to Mauritius. So I think that we have the right environment. Because if we didn't have the kind of right environment, we wouldn't be having them deciding to be headquartering here, right? So what I think is sort of bringing us the right element is, there are many things. First, I think it's cultural. We mentioned that we are bilingual and we're able to service clients in Canada, in France, in UK, in South Africa. And the second thing about being cultural is that we are a very open economy. We've been an open economy, you know, since
Independence.
every time,
Yeah.
you know, since independence. And maybe where I'm coming in is that in terms of investment, what this means is that, you know, since the very start, for instance, us at our level at Swan, we've been investing around the world. I mean, just because we were asked to do it, you know, we started investing in UK, in US, China, Asia, Europe, etc. at large. So, and we've been doing that since 1989, right? So the kind of track record that we have built, the kind of expertise that we have been building, it has nothing to be ashamed of vis-a-vis those managers coming up from Europe or South Africa. In some cases, actually in a lot of cases, we have a longer track record than them. So we're able to compete on that front. And I told you that us as a company, we've got to be investing in people. I think at Motions, are very open. We have a young workforce where it is a very intelligent workforce, very adaptable, very flexible, and very open. And why this openness is important is that, in a typical motion companies, we'll find Indians, you'll find Kenyans, Zimbabweans, etc. And also kind of, we're able to bring the right amount of brains is what gives you the competitive edge. And why I'm saying that, because probably you won't have the same kind of architecture in another African country. Just coming back to our island, we're really, really well positioned. You've got a long track record, lots of stability, right amount of intellect, the right amount of willingness to be investing in technology.
In today's episode, we've been talking a lot about wealth management. So, Antish, can you tell our viewers as to why Rogers Capital is the right partner to structure one's wealth?
Okay. So, understanding our clients' requirements, their needs, and providing solutions around that is at the core of what we do. As a fiduciary service player, we can provide most, if not all, the services that one would need from a structuring partner under one roof. Okay. In terms of breadth of experience, well, we service more than 1,000 structures from clients originating from 42 countries. So in terms of breadth, I think we're well covered. Also being part of the Rogers Group, which is one of the largest and most diversified conglomerates in Mauritius, allows us to fulfill a lot of the ancillary requirements that our clients may need, be it in terms of, hotel bookings, flight bookings, logistic support that they may need. We can arrange with our sister company, Velogic, golf course membership, you name it. Okay, it really gives us quite a bit of breadth in terms of that. And last but not least, being part of the Rogers Group again, which is a 124-year-old group, we're here to stay. Trustworthy, committed, and solution-driven for the benefit of our stakeholders.
And Alvin, why should one trust Swan Capital Solutions with their wealth?
Well, actually a lot of things, but I'm going to list 3 of them. The first thing is track record. Now, we've been into that business since 165 years. The group is 165 years old. What I said that because at the base we're an insurance company, and behind insurance, it's all about investment. So we've been having this into our DNA, since our birth, actually. So we've been investing money since our creation. And when you are investing the money of pensioners, because at the base of insurers, there's the pensioners, there's an extra fiduciary duty that you need to apply. So keeping that in mind, this forms part of our DNA, right? And when you have that kind of DNA, you know it's inbred into you as soon as you come into Swan, what you need to be doing to be managing that money, not for 1 month, not for 1 year, but for 15 years, 20 years. So our track record is a long-standing track record of, being able to deliver the right amount of performance. I won't sort of give you a comparative analysis with competitors, but we are very happy with our level of performance that we have been able to deliver for our clients. And that ranges, a whole spade of type of clients. It has been individuals, it has been pensioners, it has been private companies, it has been trusts, you name it. We're able to structure the right sort of solution and put in the right amount of expertise for you to be able to preserve and grow your wealth. And second thing that you apart from track record, expertise. In that kind of business, you've got to be investing into expertise. You've got to continue building it, continue to preserve it, and be investing into it. So how do we do that? The first thing is about selecting the right kind of people, the right kind of brains. And it's very important to be able to bring in the right brains into the company. So we are lucky to have a lot of, for instance, CFA charter holders into our group. We've got a lot of actuaries, we've got a lot of very well qualified, deep expertise into our team to be able to sort of manage that wealth. That's very important, because at the end of the day, it's people making decisions, right? So if you've got to have right people making that decision for you. Now, if you see the world changing, if you see, for instance, signs of recession, signs of a crisis, you can't wait till that crisis has unraveled to get out, for instance. You've got to be knowing how to discern those cues and be able to take a right kind of action, rebalance the portfolios as and when the circumstances changes. So, we really have the kind of expertise to be able to do that. We've been able to navigate, I've been navigating the financial crisis of 2008, COVID. The group has known, Iraqi wars. They've been knowing the 11th September, etc. So we know how to navigate those kind of turbulent times, and that's very important, because in those turbulent times you can actually lose everything. So, having that expertise to be able to navigate that kind of rough seas, that's very important. And I think the last thing, which is important as well, is to have the financial muscles. As told you, you've got to be investing in technology, for instance. Back at, let's say, 10 years ago, you could send an investment report, let's say, once a quarter or once a month. Today, the investor wants to be having his investment at his hands on his mobile. So you've got to be investing in the technology that enables that. And why that's important? Because in our sort of industry, we do a lot of complex investments. So you've got to have the right tool that we're able to pick up those complex investments. Be it with structured products, be it private equity, be it private debt. So you need to have the right tool for the right technology to be able, first yourself, to be selecting those investments, but also for your clients to access them. So technology becomes extremely important. And mind you, people today travel a lot. They don't have time to go to do a meeting with you. Maybe you see that client once a year. But that doesn't mean that, the other 364 days, he doesn't know what is happening with his investment. So, technology investment is very important. So you've got to have the financial means. I think that having a strong balance sheet is extremely important. In this kind of industry where we are, the one who are the fittest, who are the strongest, they're able to go and come out with innovative solutions. And you've got to have a bit of financial backing to do that. So the first thing, track record, expertise, financial backing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Antish. Thank you, Alvin. It's been great having you with us today.
Same here.
Same here. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Alvin.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Business Chronicles. See you in the next one.